From deep in the heart of Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast. Brought to you by Texas Fish and Game Magazine, the voice of the Texas outdoor nation. I'm your humble host, Dustin Von Warnke, the outdoor success guy, back with another podcast. So excited to have the opportunity to turn on this microphone and share the outdoors lifestyle with you. Man, am I fired up this week. This is just a fantastic podcast I put together for you guys with Chester Moore, our editor-in-chief. I'm really excited about having the opportunity to connect with him again and getting ready to leave today because I am going, I have to record these, as you know, a week ahead of time. I'm going to a deer hunt out of Mason and possibly Brady, Texas to a friend of my father-in-law's landowner out there. That's got a ranch, about 200 acres, low fence, and he needs some whitetail bucks taken off and some does, maybe shoot a couple of deer. I don't know, for me, it's not so much about the catching and the killing as much anymore. I just enjoy the outdoor lifestyle, just getting around, drinking a couple of cold ones with your friends. I enjoy just teaching kids about the outdoors. My son Jackson's 9, and I'm kind of mentoring him in the way of the force of the outdoor lifestyle, and just really having a good time, really having a lot of fun doing this stuff. And I love doing this podcast, guys. This is therapeutic for me to be able to turn on this microphone and I don't want to say yell or scream in it, but turn on this microphone and talk to you guys about the outdoors and share that message with you. And I've got to thank you guys for reaching out to me on Facebook, man, with your questions and your emails as well. You can find my information. You can call me or email me or text me at dustinsprojects.com, our fish and game website. We have a Facebook page, of course, Texas Fish and Game, or you can also contact us through the fishgame.com website, and I will get your email if you send something directed towards me or anyone else that is interested in contacting us. Is an easy way to do that through our Facebook page or through our website. So fishgame.com is going to be the topic of discussion, which is a lot of the stories that Chester and I are talking about. Him and I work together closely on that. Of course, I sell advertising as well as I'm a writer and an outdoor writer, videographer, speaker, blogger, and podcaster, and I really have the opportunity to do some great things with Texas Fish and Game. It's been a great ride so far. 3 years full-time this month. Actually, next week it'll be 3 years full-time when this airs. So this has just been a fantastic opportunity to share the outdoors world with you guys, and it just means so much to me that you've taken the opportunity to listen. If you've not done so, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, kind of the kingpin of the podcasting world. Or you can also rate us on whatever podcast player you listen on. There's probably a rating system. There definitely is a way for you to like and subscribe on YouTube, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, our friends at Spotify. We're syndicated all over the dang place these days, and I just love doing this stuff. You can also download this podcast on podbean.com, which is where this podcast originates from. That's the host of this podcast. That's where the fancy thing on the website, the embedded player, comes from, is Podbean, and it, of course, wants you to download their app and everything, which is fine if you do that. And please subscribe if you've not done so. You get a new episode for free every 2 weeks. I love free because I'm kind of a cheapskate. And something I want to get into before we talk about whitetail hunting with Chester. One of the things that's been on my heart lately, I'm a cheap guy, I guess, when it comes to buying hunts and buying gear and stuff like that, but there's no excuse for poor quality in the industry anymore. Especially if you buy stuff overseas or get it stuff that's been made overseas and that kind of stuff, and it doesn't hold up to the lifestyle that you live of the hunting and fishing world. That all being said, I always say this about broadheads, and you guys know I'm sponsored by Grim Reaper and Gold Tip. I always say this about a lot of hunting gear that's terminal gear, as I like to call it, stuff that counts when it works. Like the flashlight I have from Vapor Trail Sense. That's one I talk about, the Vapor Trail 33-point buck in the podcast later. That flashlight's the brightest flashlight I own as far as a white flashlight goes. It's head mounted. It's incredible. And I mean, it's taking a beating and it just keeps on ticking. It's great. And then I wanted to especially talk about you bow hunters out there. And I give you guys a hard time in this podcast, so please forgive me. I'm a bow hunter too, all right? But Chester and I talked about this, and he was basically, making the point that some people know it all. And I'm like, well, the bow hunting community is one of those that kind of know it all, but I was just kidding. Basically, I love you guys all, especially Central Texas bow hunter folks and bow hunters all over the nation, wherever you're listening. But one of the things that I've often counseled hunters on is getting good gear. I mean, getting good gear that's going to last you for a while, paying for something once that you don't have to, like we talked about on the last podcast, paying for something once that you don't have to pay for over and over again. Especially when it comes to bullets, the terminal performance of bullets, and if you reload or reloading components and that kind of stuff, those need to be high quality. There's so many different good ones on the market, but you know, your Norm ammunition and your Remington Core Lock and all kinds of the different ammunition brands that are fantastic out there, Winchester, and I mean, there's just so many different ammunition brands out there, but to think of them all. But basically, you know, that all being said, that's where you don't need to scrimp. That's not where you need to save. Okay, save money on a myriad of other things in your life, but spend the money where it counts. And that's my whole point for this podcast, for the kind of tip of the week, I guess, if you will, is just to you know, to keep in mind that some expenses can't be avoided when it comes to the hunting and fishing sports, especially around hunting, and spend the $40 for the pack of 3 broadheads. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of money, but still, man, something like the Grim Reaper broadheads, you can sit there and rebuild over and over again and shoot, you know, 4 deer with the same broadhead. Now, I don't suggest you do that with the same blades, but you can get a rebuild kit real easy and do that. You know, you can obviously reuse your arrows when you're in your bolts, when you're crossbow shooting or compound bow shooting, respectively. And, you know, that all being said, you know, keep in mind that no matter what you do, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, there comes a moment of truth, and your gear has to perform at that moment of truth in the outdoors, and you want to be able to count on it when it matters the most. So I wanted to definitely leave you that with some advice, because there's a lot of, you know, inexpensive stuff out on the market. I'm not gonna say it's cheap, but there's a lot of stuff that's been weeded out over the years. I remember when I first started this journey 15 years ago, or however long it's been that I started hunting, right after I got married, right after I left college, I graduated college, and you know, I was poor, you know, I didn't have any money to speak of to really buy anything. But what I did is started slowly accumulating and buying things as I needed them, binoculars and rifle scopes and rifles and all those kind of things that we use for terminal hunting tackle. You know, but make sure that you don't go cheap on the things that matter the most, when it counts the most. So I definitely wanted to leave you with that before we start our podcast. So first, a word from our sponsor, AccuSharp. We can't recommend AccuSharp enough here at Texas Fish and Game. Everybody has knives, but do they know how to sharpen them? Maintain them? Good question. The AccuSharp is a preset knife sharpener that does the thinking and the work for you. A few strokes is all that it takes for an extremely sharp knife. These can be found at Academy Sports and Outdoors, and search online for a location near you, I should say. AccuSharp.com or AccuSharp.com/buy-now. That's AccuSharp.com/buy-now for learning more about AccuSharp. Awesome stuff. Now, I've talked about this on this podcast before. I have a AccuSharp that I have used for probably close to 15 years now, since I really got into hunting and fishing all those years ago, and my dad gave it to me, and I really enjoy that blue and white sharpener. Still use it. It's in my fish cleaning kit that I have for Crosswater Outfitters, my fishing ministry, that I do a lot of the knife sharpening for that particular chore of cleaning all those hundreds of fish that we pull in from those ministry events that we do. But I love it. It's great. It's, you know, foolproof way to keep your knives sharp, maintain your knives, maintain your edge in the field, if you will, or on the water, wherever you are. Check out AccuSharp. Again, AccuSharp.com or AccuSharp.com/buy-now. And also keep in mind that AccuSharp makes a great stocking stuffer. What an idea. Basically, these things fit really well on a stocking. They can be used for chef's knives, paring knives, serrated knives, fillet knives, cleavers, you name it. Anything you use in the kitchen or in the field, AccuSharp can sharpen and do a good job of it, so check out AccuSharp. I will be back after the show, as always, and give you kind of my final thoughts. And here we go with our interview with Chester Moore. Hope you enjoy. Joining me on the phone, Mr. Chester Moore, Texas Fish and Game Editor-in-Chief. How you doing today, Chester?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm actually broadcasting here from the great outdoors, so it's always good to talk the outdoors and occasionally get to do it in the outdoors.
Yes, and I'm in the indoors right now, recording the show on my regular PC and microphone like I normally do. But so you and I are really busy guys. There's a lot going on. Whitetail season, of course, is in full roar right now with the rut and all that other stuff coming and going. And let's talk about whitetail today, man.
Well, white-tailed deer are the most important game animal in the entire planet. You can go to some very wealthy trophy hunter's home, and he'll have one of each of the Great Plains game.
Right.
He may even have all of this kind of stuff mounted. However, he probably has an entire room dedicated to the white-tailed deer. So the white-tailed deer, there's just something magnificent about them. Of course, for hunters, they are the quest that most hunters in their life go on in the United States of America. People come from overseas to come hunt whitetail here. And of course, Texas boasts the largest population of whitetail in the nation.
That's right. Texas does boast the largest whitetail population in the nation. And the cool thing about it is I've got a couple mounted on my wall here in the office, and the cool thing about it, they're such an interesting creature. My dad once told me, if a leaf falls in the wood, a squirrel hears it and a bear smells it, and, I don't know what all the deal is, but a whitetail does all three. The whitetail has the best senses out of all the animals in the woods for the most part.
And I think that's why I've been so successful. I mean, you look at this, I haven't got exact science on this, but as far as large mammals weighing more than 100 pounds, say, I would say the white-tailed deer is probably the most common large animal, wild animal on the planet. 27. I don't know any other nation that would have 27 million of anything that size or bigger. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with what you said, the incredible senses, the unbelievable smell, impeccable hearing, better sight than people give them credit for.
Right.
Just, I think, instinct, So the white-tailed deer is here because the white-tailed deer knows how to evade man and other predators.
Absolutely, and I mean that's definitely a factor to their, to their quality as far as a hunting animal to go after. A quest in the outdoors is something that can smell you, can see you, can hear you better than just about anything else in the woods. Is my point, and I mean that's really an incredible opportunity to take a game animal that, for me, Chester, it's not even just going out and shooting one. It's the fact that you can go into the battle of wits, if you will, the battle of nature versus, and I've talked about this on one of the podcasts I did with Zach Bird, the needle of the doe sends me away from her, but my needle sends me towards her, my internal needle of instinct, if you will.
Sure, and they're just there's something about them. You think about this. You think about a county, and I don't know the current stats. I remember when I was hunting in Mason County in the 1990s. There were an estimated 138,000 deer, 138,000 in one county.
Wow!
And I remember sitting in that county, and in one day I didn't see a deer, and it was a good piece of property. They just weren't moving. So you think if someone from a perspective of, well, there's so many deer there that it'd be, like a canned hunt or something like that. No. Those deer are there in large numbers, and I'm sure I walked by numerous ones on the way to the stand and back. However, they chose not to show themselves and to be wary.
Right.
And I think that's why whitetail is so successful. Also, why they're so dang fun.
Yeah.
To be around, to hunt, to view, to photograph, all the above,
No, absolutely. And I mean, one of the guys that I've had on the podcast before about this time last year, Rex Holmes with Vapor Trail Scents, Rex makes the point that even as a gun hunter, we don't consider what scent and that kind of stuff a lot, but he has a product called 33 Point Buck that you spray yourself down with, and it's a scent killer, cover scent kind of thing. And he says, we used it in the field at the ranch I work with, and they said that because of using that particular spray, they were seeing stuff they normally didn't see before because the deer use their nose so much to see if there's any humans around, and we have no idea how sensitive that part of the body is to a deer as far as they can smell stuff from hundreds of yards away. I mean, it's just an incredible species.
Well, I have a really interesting perspective because I work with, and I have been around, you name the kind of animal on the planet, I've probably been around it. Predators, prey, everything, and there are some incredible predators that have noses that are just unbelievable. And of course, canines. Think about the canine nose and what they do to smell bombs and drugs and everything else, So you take the whitetail, they're not trained to do anything. They're just what God made them to do.
Right.
And that is to sniff out food sources, to sniff out mates, and to sniff out danger, So being able to have to work around that is really part of this. If there's any art to hunting, I would say for whitetail hunting, really there's one art, and that is avoiding smell.
Right.
Because if you can get up in a stand 90% of the time you can avoid being seen.
Yes.
If but the smell thing is always a challenge. I mean,
Yeah.
so I think that's probably one of the great arts to the whitetail thing.
No, that's a good thing. And I mean, it's amazing what you'll see using a good cover center, using a good, scent eliminator, that you'll see stuff you normally would never see, without it. I've seen some guys use a scent eliminator and basically, have hogs, which I think even have more of a sensitive nose than a deer in some cases, come through and have hogs jump on top of them, lay on the ground in the woods and basically have a hog, walk over them. And stuff like that. So it's just amazing how they use that wit of instinct, So
Yeah, the thing about whitetail also is a wildlife journalist, is the fact that they're an animal. There's so many facets to that. There's always a story.
yes,
It's like there's something always unique. It's something always unusual. And one of the things I like doing is giving people information they probably never read about whitetail. We had a web feature recently, and we did a feature in the mag probably 8 years ago on this. We did a web feature recently about subspecies of whitetail deer. I mean, how many people have ever thought about a whitetail subspecies?
yeah, right. You just think of
a
whitetail,
deer.
right? You think it's deer is deer, exactly, yeah.
But there are, I think, 17 subspecies of whitetail, and they're all over the nation. From the endangered Virginia whitetail to the endangered key deer. Then you have the Texas whitetail. That's the one you have in most of the state. It's the whitetail subspecies most likely encountered by hunters. It's the one of the hill country. It's the one of the deeper South Texas plains,
right,
up in those areas. But it's not the only whitetail subspecies in Texas. As a matter of fact, if you come into my part of the woods in southeast Texas, all the way along the coast toward Matagorda, and then going back into central Louisiana, you have what's called the Avery Island whitetail.
Yes.
It's a smaller basket rat type whitetail that's perfectly in tune for living in the lower part of the thick piney woods, the thick oak motts and cheniers across the coastal plains. And they are a deer that most people never, really thought about, but they are a different deer. And and honestly, a lot of this has been diluted because of stalking of deer. People don't realize deer were stalked for quite a while in Texas because, we had wiped so many whitetail out in East Texas from poaching that that there was quite a few whitetail stalked. I mean, I remember seeing whitetail stalking trailers in the 80s going into Newton County, and they would stock whitetails. The bulk of the whitetails that were being stocked actually came from South Texas. So you had some genetic tampering there, so to speak. But you definitely, when I go fishing sometimes in particular, in some remote areas like around the Sabine National Wildlife Refuge, and see deer, they just look different than the ones I have in South Texas. And I'm not just talking about size and stature. It's just a little bit different coloration, a little bit different. The racks are more basket-like,
Yeah.
And so it's just cool to think about. You have, different kinds of whitetail. Someone who wants to do hunting quest all the time, you could literally do a whitetail slam in Texas.
Yeah, because we have, 4 subspecies here? Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah, so you have the Texas whitetail, you have the Avery Island whitetail, and you have the Kansas whitetail, which is found up around North Texas, the Panhandle, goes up through Oklahoma and Kansas, and that can be a really big deer. A lot of people don't realize there's 2 parts of the state that the bulk of the landowners are the government or owned by, just huge ranches that people don't have like a lease access to hardly. And that's the Panhandle and Trans-Pecos. And the Panhandle has some monster deer, but they're not like Johnny Lunchbucket shooting one on a pine plantation club here in East Texas. It's somebody who knows somebody or paid some coin to go do it, so you don't hear as much. But some of those deer up in that part of the world are just monsters,
right?
And that's because of the genetics of them. That's and the nutrition as well. But people don't think about there is a Kansas whitetail. But my favorite Texas subspecies is a rare one, and one that we actually have a game camera photo. If you go to fishgame.com, type in whitetail subspecies in the search engine, or pop in Carmen Mountain whitetail.
Okay.
And you'll see this really cool story. And that is one of our readers hunts across the border in Mexico, on the Carmen Mountains there, just across, I mean, literally a few miles across the border. And he got game camera photos of the Carmen Mountain whitetail. The Carmen Mountain whitetail is the second smallest subspecies of whitetail in America. The smallest is the key deer that lives totally in the Florida Keys, a federally endangered species with only about 900 specimens left on the planet. And I've actually got to, I mean, I would love, I don't know, I got to figure out when those guys are going to shed their antlers. I really wanted to go this year and photograph those little deer. They're so beautiful. They're really cool. And you see this 50-pound buck with a nice 8-point rack run up. You're like, that's crazy,
Yeah, sure.
But we have a smaller whitetail like that in Texas, and that's the Carmen Mountains whitetail. And that lives out toward the Big Bend area, essentially in some of those smaller mountain ranges out there.
Okay. No, that's good. And I mean, the one thing I brought this up, and I know we're talking about whitetail, but somebody asked the other question on one of the forums I follow on Facebook, on one of the hunting forums, or the hunting groups, and basically he said, why, you asked this question, why are there no high fence ranges for mule deer, now that we're talking about West Texas?
Yeah.
And I think the best answer I got is they don't do as well as whitetail do in breeding pens. I think that's the main reason why they're not prolific.
That's interesting. I have had very limited
information,
encounters with muleys. I have had more encounters with blacktail, which are essentially a mule deer. They're very close to mule deer.
Right.
Matter of fact, in California, the way they look at it is if it's west, I think, of I-5, it's blacktail. If it's east, it's a muley. I think that's kind of the way they do it over there. But I have encountered some mule deer, and the thing about them is they're so much more of a goofy animal.
Right.
Like I remember watching like Sports and Film Television or one of these shows when I was a kid, ABC Wild World Sports, and that's when I was a little kid that was wanting to like whack everything, right? To come out. And I saw this. I've always thought mule deer were incredible. I just thought they were just beautiful, And here's this majestic, huge, like 24-inch rack, wide, big, thick winter coat muley. And he sees the hunter, and he hops off like a rabbit.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting to watch for sure. Yeah.
I'm like, that's embarrassing, man. I mean, come on. A big whitetail take off in a sprint. A little deer punk him out in a run. Here's boing, 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 boing. Took a little of the majesty away from the muley.
Yeah, you watch them on the hunting shows and stuff when they run. They're like black bucks. They prance,
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little bit too, fox hunter thing. Regal. The little dapper gloves on, and we got to go fox hunting today.
I love it.
Too much for me personally, but they are not as hardy of an animal in general. If you look at trends in population when muleys are on the nation,
right?
There is a drop in mule deer population. Of course, they're blaming the recovery of wolves. They're blaming mountain lions, hunter harvest, whitetail incursion in some areas. It's probably a little bit of all the above. Muleys just don't respond as well as whitetail. So that's an interesting take on why they aren't, because I know there'd be big money if someone had them behind a high fence.
I understand there are some in the high fence. They just aren't advertised as much because they're still breeding them and stuff. But I mean, that I know that it's done because people have high fences all over Texas. But I mean, it's just not done as well or as prolifically, I guess I should say, as whitetail are all over the state.
Well, somebody asked me almost a similar question. How come nobody has a moose?
Right. I saw that question on was it our Facebook page? Somebody asked that.
Nobody has a moose, and I'm like, well, I don't really know why, but I've never even seen a moose in a zoo.
Right. It's because of our climate is the best answer I got to that question, because somebody asked that in another Facebook group that I was in, actually with the same thread of the mule deer, right? And
but here's the interesting thing: there's people in San Antonio with reindeer.
That's a good point. Caribou.
And I'm working on getting reindeer for the Kingdom Zoo Wildlife Center for next year. I'm hoping to get reindeer.
I've heard the reindeer and the caribou are the same thing. Is that true?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, that's what I figured. I just want to make sure I had my ducks in a row.
But, we're getting off topic here, Dustin.
I'm sorry.
About reindeer.
Here we go, derailing the train. I'm sorry, Chester.
It's cool. It's good, dude. It's your show. It's funny. Like, I love this because you get on the Best of the Outdoors podcast, and he's going to be asking the hard questions like, what about I'm not an expert on reindeer and caribou, but and how many subspecies? But I know that certain varieties have been kind of domesticated for a long, long time, obviously, you know.
It's all in the deer four-legged animal, big game category, I guess, you know. So anyway.
Yeah, I got you. It's all good, and they all taste good. I've heard caribou's great.
Oh
So.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But anyway, back to whitetail. Sorry.
Back to the whitetail. But, whitetail are interesting in Texas. If you look at population trends in the late 90s, we were up to around 4.5 million whitetail in Texas.
Goodness.
Now we're in that 3.5, 3.75 million range. One thing that no one ever talks about is the fact the population is going to have to drop because of development.
Right.
You can't have all the people moving into the most deer-rich part of the state without it causing impact on the deer, and that is in the hill country, you know.
Right.
And so it has caused some certain population drops in certain areas and stuff like that. And I don't think we'll ever see whitetail deer in danger, but I could foresee the day when Texas only has 2 million whitetails. It's it's just going to have to happen at some point because of the growing demand of man. But
Right.
the whitetail will always be the number one game animal on the planet, and it's funny because it wasn't always that way. I mean, small game hunting up until probably the 60s was much bigger around the nation. I dare you to find a dedicated squirrel hunter these days.
Yep.
I mean, there's very few, or a rabbit hunter for that matter. I grew up rabbit hunting, and I never liked squirrel hunting. When I killed a squirrel and I ate it, I didn't like it that much.
Mm-hmm.
It was like eating leather. I shot one of those
chicken.
big, like, mutant-sized fox squirrels. So it was like one of those ones that would like fight off a grizzly. Those huge ones.
Yep.
And but rabbit, man, going back to what happened, that transition from small game to whitetail. I think it was when the whitetail population started getting bigger, and people started noticing these animals, and it became this thing, kind of a naturally growing thing. And one of the things I find interesting are anomalies in the whitetail deer population. If you go around a hunting camp, people are going to, they're not going to talk about scent control too long, because most people are going to spray the stuff on them or they're not. But they're going to talk about weird stuff they saw in the field. And one of the weirdest encounters, and I've been on this story for 3 years now, heavily, is dwarf whitetails.
Okay.
My uncle Jackie Moore, the late Jackie Moore, told me many years ago about seeing a buck on a lease in San Saba County in the 70s that was a fully developed 8-pointer, but it was only like maybe 40, 50 pounds.
Goodness.
And it was fully developed. I mean, it was, you couldn't tell a dwarf doe because you'd think it was a yearling doe or fawn,
Sure.
But he said it was fully developed. He saw it several times. So I wish he'd shot it, and got it mounted or had proof. How cool is that? That was way before the era of like, iPhones with HD video on your phone,
Sure.
You barely had Polaroids back then.
True.
So my uncle passed away a few years back, and I was talking to my dad, his brother, about it before my dad passed. He said, I was on the same lease, and I saw him too. My dad saw him a couple of times crossing roads. There was a population, a few at least, of these smaller whitetails, and they were, I was like, wow, how cool.
Yeah.
So I put a blog out at the Wildlife Journalist, my blog, and I got a guy from Michigan send me a picture, and their deer are like, gigantic up there compared to ours, but there's some on a skinning rack. There's a fully developed buck, and it's probably 1/2 the size of the rest of the deer on the rack.
Like a miniature deer, like a mini-me deer in a way, huh?
A mini-me deer.
Okay,
So I said, you know what? There's no better audience to bring this to the audience of Texas Fish and Game.
Sure.
So I wrote an article for Texas Fish and Game at fishgame.com. I wrote a very expanded article about different accounts I was looking up and things like that, and some scientific studies on it. And I got a photo. A guy sent a photo. He was actually a reader from Alabama. And there's a deer, anything in a picture in the foreground will automatically appear way bigger than what's in the background as far as proportion.
Sure.
You might have a cow 20 yards in the background, but if you have a big whitetail in the foreground, the whitetail is going to look bigger.
Going to look huge. Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's a doe behind us with decent ways, and the doe dwarfs this little buck, a little 4-point buck. And it was, straight off a guy's game camera. And I'm not an expert on photo analysis, but I do a lot of Photoshop work myself.
Sure.
Editing photos and things like that. And I looked at it, and there's nothing tampered with in the photo. It's a little bitty buck. And then I had other people telling me that they've seen these things or whatever. So if any of you out there in the listening audience have a photo of, have come across a video, an account, you can email me. And here's the easiest email to remember: is chester@chestermore.com. Chester@chestermore.com, and I will be glad to discuss this with you, because we're going to do more on this after the deer season. I'm kind of waiting to see what happens out here, and hopefully this broadcast here and this growing podcast, Best of the Outdoors, get the word out. But I mean, that's interesting stuff. I would love to see that, because I've seen key deer, but they're supposed to be tiny.
Right, they're supposed to be small. Sure, right.
So I think that's just an interesting and fascinating fact out there, that people are at some level seeing some of these micro whitetails.
That's right. That's the other word that you call a dwarf deer, is a micro whitetail. You've done that in your articles before, right?
Yeah,
micro deer, micro whitetails.
And this stuff's out there. And what I like about talking about this kind of stuff is it breeds an appreciation for the outdoors more, because you realize you ain't got it all figured out.
Right.
And
a lot of Texas hunters think they have got it figured out, especially bow hunters. That's another story. I know.
A lot of people think, I know it all, and I don't. I know a lot, but I sure don't know it all. I'm always surprised out there in the outdoors,
Right.
So,
and I'm a bow hunter, so I can say I'm one of those people. So I'm not going to try to alienate anybody. I'm just saying, that group of people likes to, yeah. So anyway.
Well, I tell you what, it's an interesting topic. The other thing is ghost deer.
Yes.
It's written about at fishgame.com and Texas Fishing Game. Ghost deer, essentially people seeing white deer. And, the first thing you go to in Texas is, of course, it's a fallow deer, because there's so many fallow deer on ranches and the free ranging as well.
Right.
That people think it could be just a white fallow doe. Somebody saw a young buck, they mistaken. They saw in the distance or something like that. But there are white deer that are not fallow deer, and there are whitetails out there people see that are white. We've had a couple photos of ones that were killed, and they weren't albino; they were just white, called leucistic. When I was a kid, I just found this scrapbook piece the other day. And my dad and I have talked about my scrapbook a lot, but I'd sit in his lap and we would make scrapbooks of all the animals we want to go hunt, all the animals I want to go see and photograph around the world. I mean, I would take zoo books and cut pictures out. I had a hunting one where I had all kind of cool. I had a fishing one, and I had a Bigfoot one. I had all kind of crazy stuff, right? Well, I found a little piece of the one where I had a picture of a whitetail at the Seneca Army Depot in outside of Auburn, New York.
Huh.
It ended up becoming friends with a guy out of Auburn, New York in 2002. His name was Lou Murillo, our bow hunting editor, our hunting editor. And Lou, who hunts a lot here in Texas, took me to the Army Depot the first time, and I got to see their whitetail. It's funny because I asked him, you ever seen it outside the fence? Because it's a high-fenced Army place,
Yes, correct.
He said, nah. And about that time, one ran across the road. We saw two outside the fence. It's amazing.
Right when you asked that question, right?
Literally, like 10 seconds later. It was amazing. And then we saw some on the depot. But there are albino whitetails as well. Then there are piebald, which is like a partial albinism, also called a calico.
Calico, yeah. I was just going to say that, yep.
I saw a calico on the Greenwood Valley Ranch in Edwards County. I think it's Edwards or Real. We're on the border of Edwards and Real. In 1992, and me and Lisa and my dad were hunting Aoudad on that ranch with a guy named Richard Reynolds, hunting for Thompson Temple, and it was an unbelievable ranch, and they had thousands of access on it. And there was some whitetail that got spooked when our truck drove by. They ran up a hill about 150 yards away, and we were glassing them. Said something's different in there, and it was a piebald whitetail. Pretty sure it was a doe. That time of year, it could have been a buck. It hadn't grown back yet, not grown back to see. But it was a piebald, and that's the only one I've ever seen. I had somebody from Orange County here, where I'm sitting in the woods right now, Orange County, literally, and somebody from Orange County, in the northern part of the county, sent me a piebald doe they got on their game camera, and that was pretty fascinating.
That is.
To see something like that, because it's such a rarity. Part of it's because it's harder for some of that stuff to survive in the wild. Other parts, it's just not normal in the genes to produce that,
Sure.
So
it's kind of an anomaly, I guess. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, definitely an anomaly. Probably the anomaly that's got caught the most attention from our reader base has been black whitetails.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that too, yep.
We've been getting photos of when I put the word out of melanistic black whitetails. A guy named Charlie Hennigan sent me one near Lampasas, and it was a doe, and it was definitely not a fallow, chocolate fallow. It was a black whitetail doe.
That's my
And it's
neck of the
interesting.
woods. I mean, that's right up the road from me, maybe an hour north
Well,
from
what's
where I live.
interesting is in 26 years since I was 19 years old doing wildlife journalism, almost every single instance of a black whitetail, a photo I've seen, or anything, even archival magazine stuff I would look at and study when I first got into this. I had tons of magazines I had kept. Were at within an hour of Austin,
Okay, wow.
and so I thought that was it. Now, some of the high fence ranches are purposely breeding some of these anomalies,
Interesting.
which is fine, but it's not the same as if somebody accidentally comes across an albino whitetail buck. But
Right.
they're out there on high fence ranches as well. So, but just some aspects of whitetail you never think of.
Well, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I understand since I deal in exotics a lot, as you know, Chester. I mean, I understand a chocolate fallow or a white fallow being mistaken, but those antlers are completely different. I mean, they still shed just like a regular deer antler, whitetail deer antlers do. But I mean, you can usually tell, unless they're shed, you can usually tell the difference between a fallow and a whitetail.
Yeah, no question about it. And it's interesting. We're outdoors on these top 5, 6 kills. Yeah, somebody called the other night, and I said, "Just want to know, any weird encounters you've had in the outdoors." A lady tells me in Sabine Pass she saw a deer, quote unquote, that looked like a baby moose crossing the road.
Holy smokes, really?
And I'm like, and it was interesting. So I said, "This is where this is where it pays to be trained in what you do." And
Yes.
so I'm a baby moose. I'm like, well, I know for a fact there are no moose on any
Right.
ranches in Texas. But in Sabine Pass on the Louisiana side, for a couple of years, there was a population of elk
Okay.
around Lighthouse Cove. Someone had put out there. I saw them myself. There was a problem because Texas Wildlife didn't like them. They would swim the channel across over to Texas. They're worried about CWD.
I see.
So anyway, I'm pretty sure what she saw was an elk. And then I had callers call in who saw these elk themselves. And one guy was in a 14-foot Boston Whaler boat in Lighthouse Cove and had one get in his boat. And she wouldn't leave.
That's
I'm
great.
like, why? I said, I'm jealous. Why can't I be the guy with the elk in the boat?
That happens to
Dude,
exactly.
I mean,
Yeah,
come on. That's like my dream thing.
that would
Like,
be
I would
super.
totally jump on Facebook. Like, hey, this is Chester Moore here. And we have an interview with you. You've always wanted elk hunters.
Interview with an elk. Oh my
Interview with
gosh.
an elk in the boat, man.
Kind of like that interview with the bass we did at ICAST back in the summer. So
I'm a trailblazer, baby. I'm
that's right,
interviewing all
man.
kinds
Chester
of
Moore, the
stuff.
trailblazer. That's right.
He can tap into the mind of the whitetail, tap into the mind of the largemouth bass.
I love
It's
it.
fun. It's fun stuff, though.
This
But
is fun stuff.
one thing I gotta celebrate about your program is I always laugh and I always have a lot of fun on here, and that's what this is all about. I think we're too. Let me just say it, we're too damn rigid.
Sure.
Uh,
We're serious.
out there. I mean, I'm a very, if you know me, I'm a very intense, serious guy. But I like to laugh and have a good time. And
Sure.
if you just go hunting or fishing, so you can be like, well, I'm the coolest guy at the water cooler at work, or I'm gonna one up those guys. Quit.
Right.
Do something else. Take up badminton or something.
Yep.
I mean, this is fun stuff. If you can have fun with a cow elk in your boat, or talking about melanistic whitetails, I mean, this is or going hunting. There's something wrong with you. So this is fun stuff. And at the end of the year here, with Christmas coming up, and a lot of people reflecting on life and family, just reflect on the fun this is, and tell yourself next year you're going to have a whole lot more fun in the outdoors, because it is a fun place to be.
It is. I mean, that's the one thing I've always appreciated about you is you're more about the experience than it is about the gear or the product, like I sometimes am, and that kind of stuff. I mean, you're more about the whole kit and caboodle of the experience, and that's what I've always appreciated about you, Chester.
Well, thanks, man. I love the gear. Nothing wrong. We're all wired differently. Thank
Yeah,
God.
sure,
Yeah,
exactly.
we left up to people like me to invent technology. We'd be back at the wheel, man. I don't know, but the fire. I think it's still more like the experience of warming my hands over the fire.
That's right. Oh, some people say that I'm easily amused, and I guess I am. But I mean, it's just stuff like this that really gets me. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Back to whitetail, a piebald. I've got 3 calico cats. Okay, they're all female, and the reason why they're all female is because they have an extra X chromosome on their chromosome panel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so XXY instead of XY, I think it is, or XX or whatever the case may be. But anyway, they're all either your calico is born female or they're born as a sterile male in the cat world.
See, that's interesting right there.
So yeah, that is. So there's an extra chromosome, and we just have a love for tortoiseshell and calico, dilute calico cats. So that's why we have them. But it's interesting. I wonder if the same is true for deer.
It could be, and it could be that in the wild, for some reason, those chromosomes are hard to make happen.
Yeah,
you know,
that's why they're so rare, right? That's why the piebald deer are so rare. This is just stuff I think about. That's all.
No, that's great stuff. You know, I was looking the other day. I was googling albino hogs.
Yes.
And I saw somebody killed one actually. And I was thinking, you know, that all that stuff's out there. You know, it's just a matter of, you know, like I saw the albino pink dolphin. Incredible stuff. But we're getting back to just being the whole whitetail experience. There's a lot more than just, you know, getting a whitetail and going hunting. But there's this whole world of the deer out there that's so amazing. You know?
The biology of it all and just the wildlife experience that you bring to the table with your writing and video and radio work really, you know, encompasses the passion that we have as outdoorsmen. I don't think we celebrate it enough is what I think you're saying as far as, you know, having fun.
Yeah, we got to, man, because this is fun stuff. And one of our owners, Artie and Eves, and I had a conversation yesterday because I have a really goofy voicemail. And I said, I'm going to change it to, this is Chester Moore, and I'm out here in the field trying to photograph the elusive Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you know, and I'm going to do that today, actually.
I can't wait to listen to it. That's going to be great.
And, you know, if you can't have fun, she said, you know, she's wise. She said, you know, we need to have more fun in this industry. And, and I agree, you know.
We do.
And it translates to kids. There's nothing worse than, you know, a bunch of stiff guys trying to get a young kid who's into electronic devices into hunting or fishing.
Right.
When they can't even have fun. You know, they're just like, you know, all stiff-necked, you know. And I'm like, nah, that's really lame. You got to have fun. And most people do, you know. Most people have a great time out here, and you know, my dad was a combination of really fun in the outdoors, and really getting angry easily because I was dragging my feet or I was, you know, making too much noise because he had such a passion for it, you know. But I can look back and laugh at that stuff because we all had a great time out there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, outdoors is about family. It's about kids. It's about the next generation. It's about so much more than just going. And I'd say this on the show all the time, whether I have you on or not, Chester. I know I've had you on a lot lately. You know, it's more than catching and killing. It really is. It's about the outdoor lifestyle, about the experience. I've not killed a deer this year yet. I'm going this weekend, but you know, for me to go hang out with my buddy Danny Berry at DB Wild Game Processing and Taxidermy and go, you know, just take in deer and see a red stag that they brought in and see a field dress of red deer hind. My cleanest field dressing to date, by the way. On a gambrel, yes, on a gambrel with a winch, a red deer hind, a red deer doe, or a cow, and that's a clean, no nicking guts, no nicking pea bags, no nicking anything like that. Field dress clean as a surgeon. So I'm so
well, that's
happy.
cool because my field dressing in the past has ranged from surgeon-like precision to Leatherface with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh my gosh!
You know what I mean? It's bad. It'd be really good or it's like horrible. You know?
Right. There's not a lot of in between there, I guess. So
no, not with me. There's no in between with me anyway.
That's funny.
But you know, the whitetail things worth celebrating. It.
Yes.
It's an incredible animal.
That's the point here. Yep.
We just had this series we did that you put together, and one of the articles in that web series was about mule deer whitetail hybrids.
Yes, and if people want to check that out, the Norman Ammunition, just search for Norman Ammunition on our website at fishgame.com, and tell us some more about that article.
Well, what I liked about that whole thing was I'd heard about mule deer whitetail hybrids when I was a kid, and
yes,
there used to be like in the old Parks and Wildlife, the outdoor annual you get, there used to be like an identification thing.
Really?
Yeah, years ago, man. Maybe it was 1 year, but it was in there years ago. And they're out there in like Crockett County. Some of the places where mule deer just start popping up, and those whitetail will plug into those places. And what they found is that there is a decent amount of hybridization in some of those areas. And a decent amount of hybrid between whitetail and muleys. And then I've heard of places where the whitetail just run the muleys out. Just, you know, little hopping, dapper little guys out there, and here comes a big stud. He's like, get out of here, punk.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Give me your does and leave, you know? pretty much how that goes. But there is some hybridization out there of
Macho deer.
whitetails.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The macho deer.
Yeah.
But there is some hybridization of whitetail and muleys here in Texas.
Can Winchester send out a thing on Facebook to see if anybody has pictures of dead or alive ones, game cam pics or
Dude, that's
pics?
a great idea.
Because I'd love to see one. I would love to see one.
You know what? We need to expand that. I'll send Cindy, our social media manager, over a message today, and I'll ask, hey, has anyone seen, or anybody listen to this Best of the Outdoors podcast with Dustin Warnke, has anyone ever seen or think they've seen a hybrid mule deer whitetail? Or anyone you have a question of, post a photo, post a video, dead or alive. We want information because that's something really great to expand. That's a great idea.
Because I think they look similar to, I don't know what they look like, but I think their horns, some of them would have more forks in them, right? Because the mule deer forks more, more of his horns are forked. So I guess the antler profile.
His what?
Forked. The horns would be more forked.
No, antlers.
Oh, I'm sorry, not horns. Jeez, sorry, I'm bad. This is kind of like the time on your podcast I call the black buck antelope a deer.
That's okay, man.
Anyway,
you're so jacked up with the exotics; they all have horns, except deer. But I had to get you on my horn.
Horns. That's just the way we relate to them. Period. I mean, I know antlers shed and horns don't. So
because even the most articulate of us in Texas has a redneck gene.
Well, that's right. I've got mine. I'm a little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll.
We all got a little bit of it. And I once said, I don't think I have any. And then I had a Jeff Foxworthy moment in my home. Legitimate Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck moment happened in my home. One that if he were to employ this in his act could rejuvenate his career on the redneck jokes. If you've ever been charged by a wild boar in your own home, you might be a redneck.
In your own home? Oh my gosh.
It happened. Legit happened.
Oh my goodness.
So this guy comes over or calls me and he says, I have a little pig. It's a wild boar. I killed the mom and the baby was there with it. Do you want it? I said, man, I really don't want it, but I have a lady who could take it. She wanted it. So I brought it to the house, and it was it looked like a wild boar. It was the brown and black stripes.
Okay, sure.
And it was probably legit. It probably just got off mom. Was still hanging out with her as far as not nursing.
Right.
And it had like a little half-inch tusk, almost an inch tusk going on already. And I named him Big Noise because that's what he made, Big Noise. And I said, I'm going to keep him for a week just to do some photography. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just do some photography of him. I'll keep him for a week, because you don't get a chance to photograph those little guys like that very much,
Right.
And I filmed a video segment with him and stuff like that. And so my house at that point had one long, you could sit in the one end of the house and look down the hallway to the other.
Right.
And I had him just let him run around a second, and I had shorts on. And I look up, and he's running. I mean, it was almost like he was pawing the ground like one of those bulls in the cartoons.
Oh, yeah, sure.
He ran full blast at me. He's going crazy. What the heck's going on?
Sure.
And he ran by me and hooked me and cut my leg.
Oh, no, with his tusk, with his little half-inch tusk.
So if you have been charged by a wild boar in your own home, you might be a redneck.
I love it. That's great.
It's legit.
That is legit.
Now the wild boar weighed, 8 pounds.
Right. If people think of a 300-pounder, charging you in your own home, but no, that's good. That's still a good story.
I've been charged by an 8-pounder. Until you've been charged by an 8-pounder, you can't talk anything. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
well, it's like with deer. I mean, one of the things we're talking about all this stuff with deer is people don't realize deer kill more people in America than bears.
Really? Okay. This is news to me.
Yeah, generally, I mean, it's hard to get hard data because this isn't federally kept information.
Okay, I see.
But from what I've been able to knock out, there are more deer-related fatalities in America than there are those from bears.
Interesting. Okay, and that's simply because the deer charge after a human because they feel threatened, or why is that?
You have people that jack with bucks in the rut.
Okay, right.
There was a guy here in Orange County years ago that got killed by one. He had a deer behind his high fence and it killed us like 25 years ago.
Oh my gosh!
It just he was with it all the time. But I've been to these places and photographed deer in these settings, and I am more cautious around those deer than I'm just as cautious I would be if I'm in an enclosure with a mountain.
Right.
And there's road kills. You got to figure out the people that die in collisions with deer.
Yes, of course. Yep.
But I'm working on this is kind of me telegraphing an article I'm working on this, but
Okay.
I think I'm going to be able to prove that even attacks, there are more fatal deer attacks on people than bear attacks every year.
Goodness, what a wow! This is another whitetail mystery, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, well, the thing about this, you can think about this. There are 27 million whitetail. I'm also thinking of mule deer too, as well, and elk.
Right.
But I'm leaving out moose. Moose is a whole other level of animal.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Sure.
Moose will attack you because it's big and wants. Hey, I'm going to come over here and smack you upside the head because I want to.
Yeah, kind of like a bison, I guess, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but on whitetail and mule deer, I'm going to look I'm looking really intently at that. So you can look for that probably. And we have our bi-weekly or twice a monthly email newsletter, the Whitetail National.
Too. Yeah, absolutely.
The Whitetail National, and it goes out on Fridays, every other Friday. You will get that probably the first Friday in February. So one of the ones I'm working on for the Whitetail National. We're really excited about that because it's interesting data, And
tell people how frequent that is. Right now it's every other week, and then starting in February it's going to run every month, right?
Yeah, we'll be once a month after January, and then it'll pick back up in September to be every other week.
Right.
So.
Shame on me for not mentioning that. I'm always promoting our other newsletters, which you do a fantastic job writing for, Chester.
Thank you.
So I'm always promoting those as far as the ideas of the three times a week free newsletters that we have. So.
Well, I want everyone out there to know that we, and Dustin's a big part of this editorially as well, put a lot of effort into giving you stuff you're probably not going to read anywhere else.
Right. That's our main goal, too.
There's a lot of quality writing out there.
Yes.
A lot of quality things, but we're trying to give you stuff that you're not going to see anywhere else. That's really our goal. And part of it's business purposes. You're more likely to come back and read our stuff if you're not going to see it somewhere else.
Right.
But another part's the integrity of it. We want to give you information that is going to help you understand nature better and help you be more successful in the field. And
right.
So we don't want you to get whacked by a whitetail and say Chester didn't, and Chester didn't tell me about that.
Nobody warned me. Oh my god.
Nobody warned me.
Nobody warned me that. Yeah. No, that's good.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing, man. I mean, the thing I really appreciate about having you on the show is that I learn something every time we get together, whether it's in person or we do a podcast together, or we're just talking on the phone. It's just something that you've got such a wealth of knowledge, but you're not cocky about it. It's what I'm trying to say.
I hope not, man. I really hope not.
Because you're there to educate and help us have the best of the outdoors. This is something that I always try to say I do in this show, is just try to help educate people, in the podcast world, for sure.
Well, you do a great job of it on your podcast, and you have your own voice.
Sure.
On this podcast, you know what I mean? I can tell it's a Dustin Warnke product.
Right.
It's something that is unique, and it has your voice. You're a guy who's, for the average guy. I mean, You're city deer hunting. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I come to expect from you, and
sure.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, anything else to add? I know I've had you on for a while, Chester.
I don't know, man. If you have any backstrap, especially fresh backstrap, you can mail them to Chester Moore.
Yeah, that's right. Fresh backstrap, never frozen. That would be great. Ideal for all of us.
I will take freshly frozen as well. Pack it with some dry ice.
Right.
Send it over to me, and we will enjoy it in the Moore household.
Some Arctic ice, buddy. Some Arctic ice. Not
Arctic
dry
ice,
ice.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the better thing, actually, if you really think about it, the better thing we could do is if all Axis deer meat content should go this way.
That would be great, dude. What a better! I just had a hunter that I set up on a hunt. He took a red deer hind and a doe or a cow, and an Axis 3-year-old Axis deer that had messed up antlers yesterday at the ranch I work with, and he was just like, man, I tried to sell him the red deer thing only, and he said I want an Axis, and I'm like, okay, and he said the meat is just unbeatable, and I was like, you're not lying there, buddy. I mean, that's really good meat. So,
although red deer is really good too.
Red deer is too, and that's what I was trying to convince him is just to take the red deer.
My dad shot a red deer, and it was like we really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I've got one hanging on my wall here.
Dig it, man. Gotta love the red deer, man. What a beautiful. I love hearing those things bugle and do their thing. It's more like a roar.
Yeah, it's a roar. That's what they call it in New Zealand. It's a roar, and that's what they
do.
The first time I was talking on the New Zealand podcast, the first time I heard one roar, it was like before daybreak, and I'm sitting in a blind with a guy that I'm guiding. setting. And I'm like, I thought that the apocalypse was getting ready to happen. I had no idea what that sound was, Chester. I was like, holy crap, what is that noise? You know, I thought it was like a dog, or I mean, I didn't know what it
Dude,
was.
you know, it's funny you mention that because this is a great way to end the. We could segue into our next appearance in February or March or something.
Right.
What was that sound? But in 1996, and my friend Thompson Temple, he had a ranch called the High Hatch at that point. He had some scimitar horned oryx that I had saved up enough credits of booking hunters. And,
Yep.
all that I would book hunters for him and guide fees to go get a scimitar horned oryx. I want to kill it with a bow, though. That was my goal. Kill it with a bow.
Sure.
And so here I go, scimitar horned oryx hunt. And my dad and I went and built this thing. We built because I'd seen how people would approach pronghorn with decoys, like getting behind the decoy.
Yes, exactly.
So we took like a foam insulation and created a scimitar horned oryx. And I got out in a foggy morning, and I'm going out. There's some oryx probably, as far as I could see, was about 50 yards. I could see one kind of disappear into the fog, and there's a ravine. I said, they're going toward that ravine. So it didn't wind me. The wind's in my face. You know, I said, this might work. And I get out in the fog, and I hear this freaking roar coming at me. And I'm going, my God, what is that? You know, and I look up, and it's a big stag. And the stag didn't like the decoy.
It was not happy.
So the decoy went to the back of the truck, and we did no longer use the decoy because I didn't want to be a casualty I didn't want to be the first loss of red stag attack in Texas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
Well, dude, I appreciate you having me on the show, man. I really do. Thank you for the time to be on the show. It's a great podcast, and I appreciate what you do.
Thanks, man. And you've got a great radio show. Tell people where to find you as far as your website, The Wildlife Journalist, and KLVI and all that other stuff, Chester.
Well, always fishgame.com, Texas Fish and Game, thewildlifejournalist.com. That's thewildlifejournalist.com. And on Fridays, News Talk 560 KLVI, AM 560, and also the iHeart Media app. Look for more outdoors. Been going 19 years, about 20 years in January. So real excited about
20
that.
years in January. Well, also, the other thing I like about your show is I always pick it up on iHeartRadio's app on the after I do the after you actually do the show, I pick them up like on the weekends. And so that it's nice that they published there. The show that you and I did together on there never published because it was done live and it was done off location. But it's really cool to pick up your show, you know, as I'm doing my thing during the day, and just pick it off the iHeartRadio app because they put the podcast ready to go. So
yep, lots of fun,
yeah,
and a lot of good things going on out there. So we expect a lot from fishgame.com, and always know, you guys, when you listen to Best of the Outdoors podcast, you listen to the Best of the Outdoors podcast out there, period. So thanks for having us out there, man.
All right, thanks, Chester. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chester Moore, the wildlife journalist, just like I am the outdoor success guy. Love that guy. Great heart for conservation. We didn't talk about conservation a lot on this show, but we talked about a wide variety of things I didn't even think we'd get into. So I'm really excited about having the opportunity to share this with you because Chester's just a great guy. Awesome radio show that he has, More Outdoors, MOORE, More Outdoors, that is on KLVI 590 AM, as he talked about in his ending segment there. And really great opportunity to sit down and visit with him about what matters in the outdoors and just some fun stuff about biology and facts and wildlife research and that kind of stuff. I mean, really, really good, stimulating conversation. So I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Thank you guys so much again. Please also subscribe to our newsletters if you've not done so already. They are free to get. You get 3 times a week, sometimes 4 or 5 times a week, depending if we do an email blast with the sponsor or the Whitetail National newsletter, which comes out bi-monthly now, I believe, two times a month through deer season, and then it'll be 1 time a month during, it's called the Whitetail National. And it'll be out, you know, every month, and sometimes twice a month during deer season, and just different wildlife tips, different educational parts, different things about hunting. I've written some stuff for them about air guns and hunting whitetail and the best practices there. But it's a really cool special newsletter that comes out on Friday, so you can sign up for that. You get all the newsletters for free delivered to your inbox, and we have some sponsors in those newsletters, which I'd appreciate if you'd help out. That kind of helps us out on the advertising front. Henry USA is one of our sponsors. Henry Golden Boy rifles and all those different lever action rifles that Henry has, they're fantastic. So they're in the newsletter a lot of the weeks that we do this. And don't forget that we also, those are free, and you can sign up for those at fishgame.com. Check out our whole blog, all of our for the stories and everything that are there. And download the podcast there if you want to listen right on the webpage, which I know some of you guys are doing right now, or if you want to download them on your mobile device, your phone or your tablet or whatever the case may be, while you're at the gym or working out, or while you are walking your dog, or eating lunch, or whatever the case may be. Whatever you're listening to podcasts, it's great. The other thing you can do with Spotify now and listen to our show is listen on your Amazon Alexa. I know a lot of you guys, myself included, have one of those, and it's a neat way to listen to the podcast through the Alexa app on your phone, through the Spotify app integration. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, thank you guys. I can't thank you enough for watching, reading, and listening. Have an awesome day in the outdoors. We'll see you next time.